Yo. All right. We're doing it. I'm really excited about this video. Getting to talk about why is the mic in the shot? Chaos. I'm very excited about this video. I love my NI. I know it's my savior. I know that you're supposed to hate your saviors. I do not. My NI is extraordinarily useful. Sometimes I lean on it a little bit too much. Feel maybe a little bit too much of an obligation to it at the expense of gathering in new things, being open to new experiences, whatever. But I do think I stand by my love of my own, and because quite frankly, it has gotten me out of a lot of jams. It's got me out of a lot of jams. And it has helped me to navigate an otherwise very chaotic world. So I guess I should do the little intro. Got to start with a fist punch. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Full Blast. I'm your host, Raja Burrows, and today we are talking about NI for any users. So this is more in my wheelhouse, right? Singing the praises of NE, that's a little tough for me. It's a little tough for me. According to the model, the 8-function model, NE is my 8th function. It's literally the last thing in the world that I want to do, because it's like taking this thing that I'm good at using and then using it for the purpose of a completely different human need. And like my brain is like, nope, but that's not how this, oh my God. But now we get to talk about my saviors. So welcome to 40 minutes of just straight savior talk from me, your friendly neighborhood lead NI user. So let's talk about what does NI want to do? What is it trying to do? Why would one find it useful, helpful? Like, what the fuck is even the point? What is even the point of NI? When can it be useful? So NI is really, really useful when simplicity is helpful, matters, etc. I think about people like Steve Jobs, obviously. Rick Beato is another one. So one of the very, very, very first classes that Shave ever did was on this guy named Rick Beato. And this guy, I'm going to be very honest, he's not my favorite guy in the world, because he's a little too all in on his NI. Like, he hasn't really done any work on his SE consume, because he's the kind of guy who's just like, music stopped being good in 1979. Like, his whole thing is like, the Beatles were the greatest band ever. Every Beatles song is great. I love the Beatles. Kids today, they don't know how to play instruments. They know how to play Guitar Hero, but they never learned how to play. And I think it's so sad. And he's very old man yells at cloud about a lot of things. But again, if you want to really, there's the video that they do about him in the class. You can find it on his YouTube channel. It's him ranting about Apple and about how they change shit, and how he, as a lead NI person, is just, they're changing his shit. They're changing his shit. And, it's not a surprise to me that Rick Beato is such an Apple fanboy, because that's, again, he and Steve Jobs, I don't know if they're exact type twins, but they're both, I think they're both double masculine. They're both NI-FI, lead sleep. I think I think Jobs is sleep, blast, consume, and Beato is sleep, blast, play. But again, regardless, very, very similar. So it's not a surprise that, that they like similar things, have similar philosophies, whatever. And he has this whole rant about that really comes down to two things. One, this new shit is not in my IJ box. I don't know how to deal with this new thing. But the other part of it is they're taking something that used to be simple and making it unnecessarily complex. I remember this was back in the day, just to give you a sense of how old I am. Remember those Mac versus PC commercials? So the whole premise of it, the whole framing of it was PCs are, they're bloated and they're complicated and they're hard to use, and there's too much stuff going on. But Macs are cool. They're easy. They're Justin Long. They're simple. They're just like, oh yeah, I can do whatever I want. Super simple. Push button. I remember I was joking with some friends in college. So the old Apple mouses and the new ones too, they're a little bit better because you can customize them. But the old ones that you couldn't customize, like there were just a button. It was like, I want to click on thing, button. And the joke we had was like, it's like you're playing Jeopardy every time you're using your computer, except to send an email, you have to click on a banana. That was the joke, right? Again, I went to school with I was in a fraternity with they're all engineers, just stupidly smart dudes, but a lot of NE, just a fuck. It was like all ENTPs and INTPs in this fraternity, and then a couple of double masculine lead NIs. But again, it was just a lot of NE energy. And when you think about Apple products and their brand and looking at Rick Beato and looking at Steve Jobs, it is all about just fucking simplify everything. Just get it down to its most core conceptual components, right? Not the actual physical sensory, right? Because when it comes to the sensory things in Apple, because you can do this, you can work around it. I think that they've gone more in this direction of late, but for a long time, they didn't really have the nested folders thing. So it wasn't like, I'm going to this and then this folder, and then this is in this folder, and this is in this folder. It was built around the spotlight. It was, I do this one thing, which is go to the magnifying glass, and I push on the magnifying glass, and I just type in whatever I want, and I can gather anything that I might want without having to think about, okay, well, it could be here, it could be here, it could be... No. Everything is all conceptually in one place. And I just go into this one box and then pull out whatever I want, and it's always just going to be there, right? And that to me really is, NI at its core. Look, the first iPhone, this was, again, I just ranted on my other channel about technology and social media and how it fucked up the planet. That's been my main rant lately, is technology plus capitalism. We ruined humanity. Brah. My NF, my NIFI is oh my God, my mind is clearer now. At last, all too well, I can see where we all soon will be, and it's just a fucking clusterfuck mess. But the reason I bring that up is that the original iPhone, it was just supposed to be so I didn't have to carry around a phone and an iPod. That's it. That's the whole game. That's the only reason that the iPhone was invented. It was, It's dumb to carry around two devices, so we made it one device. That was the whole thing. And then from there, it fucking spiraled out of control and the world went insane. But that's all it was. And I think that as like a sensory example of what NI is trying to always do, simplify. Simplify. Why do I have 7 tools when one is better? Now, let me be very clear. There are plenty of instances when NI is not the right tool for the job, and where, you know, the INTJs will have that, you know, even if we don't literally have it, all of us INTJs have some version of the stupid fucking Swiss Army knife on our belt that has like 9 different tools in it. It doesn't do any of those things particularly well, but we have subjectively learned how to use each one of those things because we're not hemorrhaging energy trying to dig for shit. It's like, for 80% of the problems, I can just go into this one bag of known information and the answer I'm looking for, or at least a good enough answer, will be in there. And I think about Dave's chess analogy, and what I like about his analogy in the context of talking about NI is that there are plenty of times when chess is not the right analogy. I don't know if y'all have picked up on this, but there are lots and lots of times when Dave wants to, like, you can tell he's trying to futz the analogy, and chess is not the right one. But he's like, I don't know any other games well enough. So for instance, you know, so I brought up in the other video you saw in the thumbnail, a Sudoku book. I really like Sudoku. I think that typing somebody is a lot more like Sudoku. You are given this certain amount of information, and that's like, in that interview, they're sort of filling in some of the numbers for you, right? They're like, in this cell there is a 4, in this cell there is a 7, in this cell there is an 8, in this cell there is a whatever. And so when you're looking at people and watching people, you know, for long enough, the moves that you're making are like, okay, so if there's a 1 in that cell and a 1 in that cell, and there's a 1 in that column, then in this box there has to be a 1 there because there's a 4 and a 7 above and below it, so it can't be in either of those, right? So you're doing that kind of shit all the time. And that to me is a better analogy for typing. But guess what? Dave does not know Sudoku. To the best of my knowledge, he is not like an expert Sudoku dude, but he likes chess, he knows chess, and so that's what he goes towards. He goes towards chess. And I think it's so indicative of what, and here's the thing, his analogies are never bad, but rarely are they perfect. They're never bad, but rarely are they perfect. And I think that, you know, again, I'm just going to, you know, keep TE shitting out ideas and analogies with my lead NI. You know, it's the, when all you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. I think it's really important to recognize that sometimes the hammer is the right tool for the job, right? It is not. So whereas NE will look at something and go, okay, I know that you have a hammer, but do you have to use a nail here? Is there something different that we could use, analogy-wise, right? Like maybe it could be a screw. Maybe we could use glue. Maybe we could plan it this way. Maybe we could plan it that way. Maybe we could have this idea or that idea. Not recognizing that, you know what? Sometimes, you know, a blind chicken gets a kernel every once in a while. A stopped clock is right twice a day. That's kind of what NI is doing. It's going, okay, this is what I know how to use. Like, I am a master hammerer. Like, my hammer skills are fucking crazy. Like, I do not need. I remember this was back in this was 20 years ago, but I remember my parents were putting on an addition to their house, right? So we had a construction worker, right? Poured the concrete, and we had I mean, we built the whole fucking thing, and my dad took me out there a couple of times and sort of showed me how the construction workers do it. I don't know if y'all have ever seen a professional construction worker hammer something in. It's fucking wizard shit. Legit wizard shit that they're doing. Hang on a second. I'm just going to stop for a hot second because I don't like... The light is weird and it's making... Okay. Well, it's a little darker. That's darker. I don't like that. So it's gotten darker sooner, and the light is all different and weird. So I'm still trying to set up the new setup with the time change. Anyway, sorry for the random sensory tangent there. But anyway, back to the construction workers. I don't know if y'all have ever seen a construction worker hammer in a nail. It's wizard shit. Because here's what they do. They don't, some of the guys on the crew, maybe they have a nail gun, but the nail gun isn't that much faster than the master carpenter. Because here's what the master carpenter does. He takes the nail, right? I mean, these are big fucking nails. I mean, these are huge, long ass nails, right? He'll set it on the dude set it on the piece of wood. He had his hammer. He gave it tap just to drill the tip in just a little bit. He goes tap, pulls his hand away, grips it at the end of the hammer and goes ka-chunk. Shunk. That motherfucker sunk into the wood in one hit. One hit? One hit. I fucking lost my mind. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? One hit. Holy shit. Holy shit. Insane. Just insane. But that to me is sort of what NI is looking for. And the way that NI helps itself is it is so good at seeing gaps. Where I feel like no, because they both sort of see gaps, right? They're all about, again, making connections, analogies, patterns, missing information, filling in where the sensory is missing with some sort of idea or pattern or connection. But with NI, it feels very end game driven. Sort of in the way that SI is very end game driven, where it's if I just do this one loop, this one stitch over and over and over again, eventually I will get to the end of this really complicated puzzle or pattern or whatever, right? A lot of people, again, not all, anybody can do a fucking puzzle, but one thing that I have seen as a fairly recurring pattern among people who get really into puzzles is they have this incredible sensory patience about it and their ability to go, listen, I just need to fit two pieces together. That's it. Then once I have fit two puzzle pieces together, I then fit another puzzle piece on top of that one, and then another puzzle piece there, and then another piece, really just truly brick by boring brick. That's kind of what NI is doing in its own way, because it's not trying to deviate. It is very keeping its head down, staying the course, blocking out sensory nonsense, with a very clear end game in mind. And that's really, really useful. If you can tap into that shit, oh man, oh my God. I will freely admit, my NI is not as good as somebody like Gary Vee, Tony Robbins. The reason that their NI is better than mine is because it's in the middle. they are double observers. They can go back and forth between, like, they can look up and look down in equal measure, and they don't really get super freaked out about that process in a way that I do and I don't love. Like, I am much more comfortable just keeping my head down and not looking up and looking around when that is useful, right? So, one thing that Chan talks about, and again, I think this is at least partially indicative of her double observer-ness. One thing that she talks about is she's like, don't be looking around, and also like her demon preaching, right? She's preaching her demon NI, which is in the middle, but it's single activated. She's like, don't look around once you get to the summit. Take in the view, take in the sights, recalibrate, and then put your head down and just do the work until you get to your next goal, right? That is all NI. That to me is a beautiful use of NI, where it's like, okay, I'm picking that end goal. I'm just going to focus on getting to that spot. And then once I get there, I'll look around and then I'll look for the next thing. Where I get fucked off is I'll do one of two things. Is I will look way too far in the future. I'll plan shit out way further ahead than is ever useful, helpful, productive. And what that keeps me from doing is that keeps me from reevaluating. It keeps me from being able to go, you know what? I am at this summit. Maybe I should look around. Like, maybe I should take a second to like take a breather and see what I want. And, that's sort of what, I don't think it's what totally fucked me over, in New York, but there's definitely an element there of, I graduated college and I got all this shit and they're like, we are setting you up for success. The second you move to New York, you're going to get an agent. I had an agent before I even graduated college, which again, back then was not super common. And I don't know. I didn't ask myself if I actually wanted to be on this NI path. Now, again, part of that is my, NI-FI sleep last, but a big part of it was, nope, my lead NI has picked that thing as the end goal, which is being on the Broadway, being a professional Broadway musical theater actor. Without, every time I got to a summit, I didn't actually stand up and look around. I didn't go like, hey, maybe I kind of want to go in that direction. Let me change course now, right? But where NI, right? So like that is a downside of too much NI, 100%, failing into taking the sensory around us. But boy, is it fucking useful if you know that the thing that you're aiming for is really important and worthwhile. And I think about NI plus F. Oh man, that's powerful, right? When NI plus F, whether it's FE blast, FI sleep, it's where you get that sort of Sylvester Stallone, Rambo, get out my way, I'll fucking break your collarbone and just like go ham on you. That energy, yes, that is his FI. Yes, that is his like, me, my identity, this is what I want, fuck the tribe. There's absolutely that in there. But you also see he has a lot of NI. Yeah, I mean he has a lot of NI. And you really see it come out in that, when he's in these interviews and he's talking about, again, he's preaching a lot of his FI NI sleep, but you really can hear his NI come out when he's like, listen, I know what I do. I know what I do. I know what I'm good at. I know what I know how to write movies for myself. And if I deviate too much, if I do too much gathery shit, I end up in shit like Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, which are, terrible movies. They totally flop. But, it's, and when he talks about it in retrospect, he's like, listen, damn it, now I got to do my Stallone impression again because I love it so much. It's not very good, but I love doing it. He's like, yeah, when look, I know it works for me. I know that doing the Rocky movies and then doing the Rambo movies, that when I stick to that, it ends up pretty good. Got to work on my lip muscle. Like I gotta like Jim Carrey can do it great. Jim Carrey, his Stallone impression is mwah, maron. I love it. But anyway, so that's NI, right? It's like, it's very much stay the course. Stay the course. Who was that? Was that Dana Carvey doing Bush Sr.? Stay the course. Just keep staying the course. That's what NI feels like. So I want to talk about why any can be a liability. Any can be a liability in today's world because there's just so much shit to gather. You cannot possibly gather enough information, ideas, perspectives. It can't be done. SE gathering is at least limited by like, I don't have room for this shit. And you will eventually be like, I have a 3-car garage full of Martha Stewart organizing magazines. What the fuck? Like, eventually the sensory will slap you in the face because you'll just, it says it, right? It's physical. But that's tricky. That can be really weirdly insidious because you can't see all of the pattern gathering that you're doing and all the perspective gathering that you're doing on autopilot, just totally subconsciously. And it's this, Annie has this incredible responsibility, weird responsibility, but it is it is a very powerful thing. They're like, I have to be able to look at this problem from every possible angle. I have to look at perspectives on a spectrum and look at every possible way of looking at this and then picking the best one. But once I pick the best one, that's just the best one for right now. If a new perspective comes along, it is my responsibility to evaluate it, to think about it, and see if it is better than what I'm already doing. And Annie is constantly on the lookout for new and better perspectives. In the same way that SE is always on the lookout for new and better things, Annie is always about like, if there is a better idea out there, I want to hear it. Now me, an NI user, I will say that, and I will be lying to you. I will know that I'm lying to you, but I will do it anyway because it is attached, because then it becomes part of my TE, because it's like, well, if I become too into no, this is my perspective, I want to stick to my perspective, I don't care about your perspective, this is my subjective perspective, I look like an asshole. And my TE does not want to look like an asshole. So looking at things from different perspectives is not actually a strength of mine. It may seem like it is, but it actually is not. It just isn't. Because what ends up happening is that I look like a gadfly, a disruptor, a maverick, just because my NI perspective happens to be different from the SI perspective or from the currently, scene. It just happens to be a different perspective. So it seems like, wow, you're so good at seeing things from multiple angles. No, I'm fucking not. I'm absolutely not. I'm good at seeing things from one perspective that happens to be unique to me. So by definition, it will seem like I have a fresh take on the world, but I'm not looking to multiply those perspectives. I like my one perspective. I want it to be as robust as possible. I don't want it to be flimsy. I don't want it to be like completely shut down by new sensory information. But I'm not actually looking to see things from other people's perspectives. I'm really not. What I'm looking to do is I'm looking to have one universal perspective that encompasses everything so that I don't have to. The whole saying of like, to get to know someone, you got to walk a mile in their shoes. And then there's the stupid quippy part that's like, then you'll be a mile away and you have their shoes. Ha-cha-cha. But that idea of like, put yourself in my shoes, look at the world from my perspective. My NI is doing everything in its power to never, ever, ever, ever have to do that. So when is that useful? Well, it's useful in our internet age when there are simply too many perspectives to fully consider on a case-by-case basis. I have seen so many lead consumes, especially lead any consume types, just not fucking get anything done ever because they can't. They can't do anything. They're like, well, what about this plan? Or what about this plan? Or what about this plan? Or what about this plan? And then they'll only end up picking something and like narrowing down in a super duper demon state. And then they'll try it for like a day and they're like, that was a terrible decision. I'm going to abandon this because that was a bad idea. And in a lot of ways, I think that they were right to abandon it. But what they need to do in that case, if this is you and you're, if you're the lead NE, ENFP, ENTP type, and you find yourself hopping from thing to thing and just never getting anything done, consider like narrowing down your plans. And rather than like, I still think that you can play somewhat to the human need of like gathering. Like, I don't think you necessarily have to fully abandon that. But just gently start to rein it in. Gently start to rein it in and be like, okay, I'm going to consider every possibility on the spectrum within these parameters, right? And then within those two parameters, I'm going to go nuts. That to me is a really good way to look at it. I don't know why. So first off, my allergies are terrible, but like my camera keeps going in and out of focus. The tech issues, you know what? I think it's fitting that for the lead NI videos that the tech is as bad as it has ever been. What the fuck, dude? Oh my God. So upset. So upset. The chaos! But anyway, I think that if you're a lead NE and you find yourself just overwhelmed with possibilities, look to the NI people. See what they're doing. Because what they're doing is, can you think of a concrete example of how an NI would approach an issue compared to NE? Say to you, ha ha ha! Yes! Okay, oh my God, that's perfect. So, yeah, that's a really, really good example. And that is something that I actually went through personally. So I'm going to use the example of my friend. We're going to call her, I'm going to call her Amanda. That is not actually her name. But I'm going to call her Amanda because it's my favorite name. And it's also the name of one of my absolute best friends. So me and Amanda. So for the purposes of the exercise, Amanda is an ENFP, and I am an INTJ. So this friend of mine, who is actually the person I was referring to earlier, who was like trying different shit and moving to different cities and whatever, she is in the metaphysical community and she likes, doing like Reiki healing and that sort of thing. But she's like, but I also like the corporate America thing. Like I do thrive in structure. Like I like when there is structure around me and then I can be the one to disrupt the structure and there's a balance there. But I'm also thinking about maybe being a doula and maybe I could go back for a psychology degree but I don't know if that will pay well enough. So I need to I need to be a marriage counselor rather than just getting a psychology degree, or maybe I should try to go for an MD, but then I have to go to med school. And it's just like, there's not really a through line energetically, emotionally, pattern wise between all of these different things. Like you can find the connections, but one is not readily apparent, right? Whereas for me, when I was doing all the career stuff and thinking about changing careers, I was like, okay, let me focus on I just need something consistent. Okay. So from that consistency, what lines of work, will give me that sense of stability? Okay, great. Of these 7 career options that give me a sense of stability, what's the next human need that I need? Well, I need something that lets me connect with people on a daily basis. I need to be able to connect with people, talk to people. I've been doing a lot of recruiting. And I was like, okay, yeah. I like this idea of, doing something in that realm. I get to hire people. There's like a human resources component, and I still have the structure. Okay, so now these 7 options get narrowed down to 4 based on these other criteria, right? And so from there, I'm like, okay, well, do I want to do internal recruiting or external recruiting? Well, if I'm going to live in New York, I'm going to want to make as much money as possible. So then I should be looking at doing external recruiting because that's more salesy. And if that's more salesy, that'll get me the money. Okay, so then I'm like, so that whole process was me starting with a wide net and then just slowly narrowing down based on like, I don't like this, 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 I don't like this. I've ended up with this, right? It's that whole chopping the board in half thing. Whereas, it's, again, for those who've not played chess, I don't play chess, but Dave uses this analogy a lot. It's going, okay, I know that he's on this half of the board. I can get rid of all of these. I know that he's in the top half or bottom half. All right, so he's in the bottom half of this half of the board. All right, and so now in this quadrant, is he on the left side or the right side? Okay, he's not left. So I get rid of all those, and eventually you're left with just one square, right? That's a very NI way to approach finding something, whereas the NE approach would be, I'm starting here. I know that I like this. So from this, what's a super outside the box leap idea that I could make, right? I could do, like, what's something that has no connection whatsoever on the surface, right? And so that would be like if I were to go, okay, so I know that I like musical theater, and I came from that world and came from tutoring. What about being a chef? It's super out there, but let me just keep being a chef in the mix, right? Going to culinary school, right? Ooh, okay, well, if culinary school is on the table, what if I were to be a composer? Yeah, I do like writing music. What if I go back and go to songwriting school? I get a songwriting degree from like a music conservatory. Yeah. Although, you know what? I do like working with my hands. Like, I do think that working with my hands is something that I know that I want to do. Like, I am again, masculine sensory. I'm a very, very physical person in a lot of ways. When I am at my best, when I am vibing all the chakra, like when I'm doing the things, I am very grounded and very physical and very, So, okay, maybe something like a woodworking or a leatherworking, and actually in all of these, they're not career choices as much as it's going back to school and building different skills. Ooh, what have I always wanted to learn? Well, what's something I don't know? Oh boy. Well, I don't know how to speak Russian. What if I were to go back in Russian? Okay, so Russian, that could lead me to, this other thing and this other thing. And crucially, in that whole process, once I moved, I think what I said culinary school, and then I did going back to get, taking a songwriting program, and then taking songwriting classes, and then doing something where I work with my hands, maybe like a leather working, carpentry, trade school. Once I got to like trade school, I didn't ditch, being a songwriter. I'm just gathering options. I'm not trying to narrow anything down. So it wants to pick something at the last possible second. So here's a really good example of what my dad does. So he's lead SE. The man I thought he was NE for years, but he just isn't an analogy machine. He's not Robert Downey Jr. He's very athletic, grounded, this double masculine, sweetest guy in the world. He's lead consume. He has demon masculine TE, which again, one of his big life problems is he just doesn't realize how hard he punches when he punches at people. He thinks he's giving you this little hit on the shoulder, and it's actually I don't know if you've seen the clip of Martin Freeman on the Graham Norton show where there's a punching bag, and he just fucking gets up there and goes, okay, and just fucking nails it. Right. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. I just wanted to bring up the Martin Freeman scene because it just tickles me every time. But anyway, so my dad, he's a lead SE, and motherfucker, this man will not. So if we were driving on the highway and he has to take an exit that's on the right, it's all right, the exit's coming up in a mile. He will get into the right lane to make that lane change as late as possible because he wants to keep his options open. He just wants to keep in the sensory, grounded, physical, he just wants to keep his options open until the last possible second. Whereas an NE wants to keep their options open when it comes to plans. They don't want to settle on a plan because that's limiting the options. And what if you pick a plan, but some better thing comes along? Now you're fucked, right? So says the lead NE. The lead NI is perfectly comfortable passing up objectively better ideas, right? There have been so many times when it's you could be doing this shit differently. And I'm like, I could be. But you know what? That means having to learn a whole new fucking thing. I like my NI box. I like what I'm aiming for. I like this plan. I'm just going to stick to this plan until I cannot anymore. Now, could I stand to do a little bit more NE? Absolutely. I made a whole fucking video about how I need to do a little bit more NE. But, I've seen so many NEs burn out, get stressed, just overwhelmed with the consume. Yes. And that's the sort of the thing with NE. Here's the thing. When you're NE, you will accidentally create structure for yourself. Structure will happen around you, whether you like it or not. Here's a really good example. My old boss, lead NE, and she fucking hated authority, plan, rigid corporate structure, hated it. And so what ended up happening is she just was never around. And she was like, yeah, there's this one director and then the salespeople. And I don't know, there's stuff happening, but whatever. I want a very flat organization. Well, what ended up happening is that because she didn't put the structure in place, structure got found. we ended up making our own structure, which was shitty and didn't work and had no oversight, no authority. But like we organized ourselves because the lead Annie refused to. And then when she looked in, it was like, what the fuck have you guys been doing here? We're like, well, yeah, this hierarchy emerged because you didn't set one. Right? And that's the curse of the NE, is that it's like, you know, organization will happen whether you like it or not. And for the NI, chaos is going to happen whether you like it or not. And so you can either choose to get in front of that or have it happen to you. And so, you know, look, there are lots of times if you're a lead NE, your SI, again, I'm a huge SI fan. You can get so far just doing SI. You really, really can. But sometimes your SI fails. And I think that when your SI is failing you and you're a lead NE, look to NI. Look to see if, like, you know what? Maybe there's something further down the line that I could be aiming at, and that narrowing my options and energies and plans, maybe that's not the worst thing in the world. Because maybe that, just for a little spurt to get me through whatever, simplify it, break it down, be real minimalist for a second. And then once I get through this rough patch, then I will be able to, okay, now I can expand my options again. But I got to just keep my head down for a minute, a month, 3 months, whatever it is, to get through this tough time. And then on the other side of that, now I can really take stock of, okay, now I can do my NE again, my NE SI axis thing. Great. But, you know, it could be very difficult to accomplish anything and to move forward if you're constantly feeling obligated to the newest and the best and the most interesting and the coolest and the weirdest and constantly thinking outside the box. You're going to end up building a box that maybe you don't like. And with your NI, that can help shape that box into something a little bit more intentional and something that will actually serve both your SI and your NE in the long run. All right, that's all I got for today. Thank you for hanging out with me. One more of these. I will talk to you guys later. Bye.